floating in an abyss of space and time which we call the universe, nestled away in the far corner of a swirling mass of volatile and superheated gases which dance together in such a way as to form the cosmos, is a tiny collection of planetary bodies. In the center of this collection is a star, which we call the Sun, or sometimes Sol or Helios. Around this center star spin several smaller objects. Some are collections of rock, others of water or pure gas, but what's true of all of them is that not only do they spin and circle around the Sun, but pirouette in a smaller spin as well. And with that pirouette, our small object, our little blue collection of water and rock, nods over time, back and forth. So sometimes her northern pole faces the Sun while her southern pole is away, and then back again so that her southern pole face is closest to the Sun while the northern pole is away. It is this cosmic dance which produces our wheel of life, our wheel of seasons, our wheel of tides, our wheel of the movement of sunlight. Our ancestors noted this behavior and its predictability. They tracked it and found they could time it. And in the way that only humanity can, they felt that they perhaps needed to help it all along with rituals and prayers. At the very least, many of them felt the need to mark the changing of the seasons with celebrations. And so today, on this episode of The Wandering Crow, we bring you the solstice, a brief sharing of celebrations and beliefs from around the world.
There is a medicine story that tells of Crow's fascination with her own shadow. She kept looking at it, pecking at it until her shadow woke up and became alive. Then Crow's shadow ate her. Crow is dead Crow now. Join us as we attempt to look through the wandering crow's eye to find the gateway to the supernatural, to seek to know the unknowable mysteries of creation. Welcome to the Wandering Crow podcast.
Did everybody see JT's shirt?
I thought he was just wearing a fucking robe. I'm like, oh, I didn't know he had a tattoo like that.
It's got arm tattoos.
Excellent. Well, we need to describe what we're seeing. Oh, okay. So it's one of those like skin shirts, and it gives you extra. What do they call that? Sternum bush. Stern bush.
Sternum bush.
You got stern bush and some arm sleeves going on.
Oh my God.
In this shirt. That's nice.
It's like the chest of a biker man with crazy chest hair and a tattoo that says Merry Christmas. Is that what the tattoo says?
Yeah. It's misspelled too.
Oh,
Christmas
yeah. There's
is
a
misspelled.
tattoo. Oh, my God.
Yeah. What are you wearing?
Yeah, it freaks people out when they like glance at it and they're like, what the fuck?
Because it's so not you.
Yeah, exactly. Right. That's the whole point.
Good morning, murderers and wanderers, and welcome to this episode of The Wandering Crow. I'm Mandy.
That's it. It's just you.
It's just me today. Well, I'm going to pack up and go home.
This is Abby.
This is Cameron.
And this is JT.
And welcome to this episode of The Wandering Crow. I'm so excited. Guess what, everybody? Guess freaking what?
What freaking what?
We're recording an episode about the solstice on the motherfucking solstice. It is solstice. Happy solstice, everyone.
Happy solstice.
Happy
Wow.
solstice, y'all.
Crazy.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It's like magic or
Fascinating.
something.
Interesting.
So interesting. Fascinating.
E.T. phone home.
You're doing a
Ouch.
lovely job with your soft radio voice.
I'm trying. Yours is better. I feel like you have had time to internalize.
That's right.
Okay. Anyway, so it is the solstice, and I wondered if there's anybody here who wanted to explain what that actually means. What is the solstice, everyone? The solstice.
Well, it's
I have a really cool quote.
Oh,
go for it.
yeah.
So this is actually from Native News Online. Warrior journalism defending tribal sovereignty is the header on the website. For many indigenous peoples, the winter solstice is more than a date on the calendar. It is the shortest day and the longest night of the year, a time when darkness pauses and the return of the light begins. The solstice reminds us that even in our darkest times, the light is still there. If anybody wants to give the actual Latin meaning, go for it.
JT, Cameron?
Sol means sun.
Yeah. Yes, correct. So it's Latin altogether. It means the sun standing still. So twice a year is a time in the turning of our wheel where the sun appears to stand still and then goes back again the other way.
I actually am dumb and don't know any of this stuff. So
Really?
Yeah, this was actually an enlightening research project for me.
Yeah, there's a lot to learn. And for this particular episode, because there are two solstices, I think we pretty much focused on winter solstice. And as Abby described, it is the longest night and the shortest day. And it has a lot of significance to many cultures around the world. What is the culture that you focused your learning on? Or like, what is the group?
Mississippian indigenous people.
Nice.
I did Chinese, East Asian.
Nice.
I did Iranian and Scandinavian.
Okay. I did Turkish with like just a touch of some Persian in there, but I have a feeling it's going to intersect with a few of these different things. So before we get any further into it, let's have a little break for social media.
If you like what we do, please like, subscribe, download, comment on, and leave a review. Please give us a 5-star rating. If you have a story and you want to share it, you can reach out to us on a variety of ways. We have our email on the website, which has links to all of our media. We have tons of social media links, all available in the show notes.
Let's dive in.
I'll go so that I can tune out for the rest.
Fair enough. Abby's multitasking, everyone.
You guys don't mind. Okay. So listening back in a previous episode, I think that you guys mentioned, is it nativelanguages.org?
Yeah.
That you guys like to refer to?
Love
okay.
That.
All right. So this person, Oren, who I think does a lot of the writing on this native languages website, he posts this long disclaimer about, what kind of person are you that's looking into this, and here's what you need to look for if you have good intentions, and here's what you need to know if you intend to try to share any of it. And I copy and pasted number 3 and number 4, and I think that I'll just read them off the bat to preface the rest of what I say, because ultimately after reading this, I decided to let this be my sign that I should not go deep into detail about what their religious beliefs are, so to speak, based on what little I was able to find. He says, so number 3, look out for people claiming to be American Indian shamans, talking about tarot cards and Wiccan/pagan things, or talking about crystals and New Age things. I've got nothing against shamanism, paganism, or the New Age, but a cow is not a horse. None of these things are traditionally Native American. Shamanism is an indigenous Siberian mystic tradition. Wicca is a religion based on ancient European traditions. Tarot readings are an Indo-European divination method, and the New Age is a syncretic belief system invented, as its name suggests, in the modern era. None of them have anything to do with authentic Indian traditions, and anyone who thinks they do is likely to be wrong about anything else he claims about Native American religions as well. Oh, anything else he claims about Native American religions as well. Wiccans and New Agers don't have any more knowledge about actual American Indian beliefs than you do. Number 4, identifying only as quote unquote Native American or quote American Indian, and in parentheses, an authentic person would list their actual tribal affiliation. Be a little wary, too, of people trying to speak with authority who identify as mixed blood or of Indian descent or having a Cherokee ancestor. There are certainly some mixed blood people who were raised in their tribe's culture, but many were not. A person who has rediscovered his Indian heritage as an adult is a seeker, not a teacher. He is not qualified to speak authoritatively about Native American religion or culture, for he wasn't raised that way and doesn't have any more knowledge about it than anyone else learning about it secondhand, including you. Which means me, right? I'm reading this and I'm interpreting that as that's me. So I could learn about it all I want, but yeah, I really don't have any right to try to reiterate it to anybody, especially since I screw things up all the time when I'm talking. So I decided I wanted to delve more deeply into the North American earthworks. When I was reading the Mothman prophecies, it kind of offended me, even as a white person, that John Keel wrote about all these amazing earthworks and how, like, the indigenous people of the country couldn't possibly have had the intelligence to erect these things or do them. Like, he believed that it probably was extraterrestrials or some nonsense like that. I don't remember what he said because it was so long ago now. I thought we talked about this on the show,
feel like
Mandy.
You did, but I was like always sleep deprived.
Right.
Holy shit. That's a fallacy that we modernly just have about all ancient peoples. They were dumb.
Yes.
They didn't
this idea
have
that
the ability.
Only extraterrestrials could have given us this intelligence to do this. So when I was reading that, I just thought there's no way he's right about this.
Agreed.
I went down that rabbit hole back then a little bit. And is it Bennington? I think JT talks about one of the earthworks where it lights up inside during the solstice. So I knew there was a connection and wanted to look more into that. And what I learned was we actually have our own Woodhenge in North America, located in Illinois, approximately. There are two really great developed areas with significant earthworks, or mounds as they are called to archaeologists. Cahokia, located a few miles west of Collinsville, Illinois. There are Hopewell mounds, which are actually in Ohio and have some connection. And the Hopewell tradition, also called the Hopewell culture and Hopewellian exchange, describes a network of pre-contact Native American cultures that flourished in settlements along rivers in North America. Specifically, we're talking about Illinois, Ohio, Great Lakes, Miami, Georgia, Tennessee, Texas, from the Great Lakes down to the Gulf of Mexico. But Cahokia is created, and they create a mound with the same footprint as the pyramid. What's the name?
We're talking about an Egyptian pyramid or like a South American pyramid?
Yeah.
Like Giza?
There you go, the Pyramid of Giza. The methodology and the incredible architecture was strikingly similar to what was going on in Egypt. In Cahokia, it was actually a civilization of 20,000. So they had a civilization of 20,000. And in this era, you start getting inherited chieftain status, children dying as chiefs and being buried. This is how they know that it's inherited and not just like chosen from person to person.
Do they have any ideas like why the footprints were the same between these two cultures separated by a massive ocean? Like, how is that possible?
Well, I don't know. Yeah, you're right. How is the footprint essentially the same by size and dimension? I don't know. Crazy coincidence.
Pretty crazy.
Like you've said, oral tradition. I don't know. Who knows?
Oral tradition passed down somehow between the Egyptians and these people.
Well, yeah, no, it doesn't make sense, but that's my best guess. By around 1400 CE, these mounds were largely abandoned due to tragic events like epidemics and conflicts. The ancient knowledge of these earthworks was lost or withheld by the indigenous people. all we have is archaeological record and findings for a very long time to assume what these were for. And what we know and can judge, they have a wood henge, which is a large circle of wood pillars with one in the center. And these wood pillars follow the sun cycle exactly. From the center pillar was largely used for ceremony, and that center pillar would align perfectly. If you stood behind it, the sun would rise on the solstice right behind the chief or, their temple building on top of the mound that it was looking straight at.
That's amazing.
Regarding the mounds,
the science, the exact math of it is very impressive, and they were able to do it over and over again. What they would do was they would create these wood frames and then put, essentially plant sod over them and then remove the wood frames. And so they look like hills from the outside, but you could go inside of them. And for some of them, they are connected through channels. And on one end, it aligns with the winter solstice perfectly. And either at sunrise or sunset, the sunlight enters in through the entryway and lights up the inside majestically with this great light. And then the other end lined up perfectly with the summer solstice for the same purpose. They knew and tracked even before creating these structures to help them time. And basically, they were like calendars to them. The wood henge was like a calendar. But even prior to creating these things, they knew and had a perfect map of the lunar and solar cycles. And that is obviously, as we've already mentioned, a huge focus of the winter solstice. Archaeologists believe today that the sun was one of their deities. And obviously that tracks because of the way that they went through great measures to create these significant architectural feats and the precision and time that they took to track the sun. But furthermore, interestingly enough, within the commodities of the trade system, elaborate copper plates were made in numerous different cultures, and a number of burial sites were found with these plates with depictions of quote unquote Birdman. These plates would depict raptors and bird-human hybrids with heads ranging from human heads to raptors' heads to double-headed raptors on stylized birds' bodies with naturalistic bird claws. Avian imagery occupied a central place in Cahokian iconography, with examples including an incised sandstone tablet with a bird man excavated within one of the mounds they called monk mounds, and an elaborate elite personage burial in Mound 72 with thousands of shell beads arranged in the shape of a bird. And so they think that in addition to them possibly venerating the sun as a deity, they theorize that the bird of prey on the front of one of these tablets specifically symbolically represents the upper world. The middle world of man is represented by the human figure wearing these costumes, and the lower world is defined by snakeskin patterns or examples of snake features that they find in a lot of these Birdman depictions. So upper world, middle world, and lower world all meeting each other. I was able to find 4 Native American tribes on the Native Languages website, which he shares, have an actual name for the sun as a god. And those are Chickasaw, the Mi'kmaq, aka Ulnug, the tribe that I talk about in my Ulnug Awareness episode, Blackfoot, and the Hopi. And the reason why I kind of wanted to fixate on this bird imagery is because it's just like in the Bridgewater episode where we talk about how these indigenous people, they're a people with amnesia. And they kind of lost the traditions and were left kind of trying to gather and assume and put the pieces together of what they believed and what their rituals were, which is we know little to nothing, even in conjunction now creating partnerships with and involving native tribal cultures into these projects to try to marry the past and the present to figure out, what might have been happening back then. And so one similarity I found was that the Zuni have a tradition called shalako. And I did find a native Indian run website called toaten.com, which seems to be a curated marketplace of Native American artists where they sell their art and work. And you can look up all their bios and what tribes they belong to. So this does fall under the parameters of what Native Languages Orin was suggesting we look for. The Zuni tradition of Shalako, without going into a lot of specifics about their celebration, because this one is super specific, but essentially they believe in these giant bird spirits, which are capable of sending messages from the people down on Earth to the...
Does that have anything to do with like the Thunderbird? Is that one of them?
I don't know if you heard, but in these mound societies, in the archaeological excavations, they found a lot of giant bird symbolism, birdman symbolism and imagery. And so I thought it kind of ties together well with the Zuni tradition of Shalako, because a ginormous bird that dwarfs the kachina, for instance, which is already supposed to be huge, is a big part of the ceremony. And so I thought that was really significant, and I would share that much about it. I appreciate and like the idea of the bird being, again, it comes back to that worship of nature and how everything is connected. The birds are sort of the messengers from Earth to the gods, essentially. I thought that was kind of cool. Most modern Native American cultures, I find a lot of talk about how Native American cultures celebrate time in cycles and not in a linear way. And it's all about the cycle, as Mandy has mentioned. And so this is the time to quiet yourself, hole up, share stories, and just have some inner reflection and practicing a quieting. So the Great Earthworks have a lot of obvious connection to the solar cycle and specifically the solstices.
I do have a question.
Yes, sir.
You talked about the wood henge that they had, the wood pillars. Did it say anything about the ground around it? Because a henge is more of what's going on with the ground than the wood structure.
Interesting.
They talk about solstice, the solstice pit, but it's, imagine a sundial.
Mm-hmm.
It's like a giant sundial. And so in essence, something's going on with the ground. It's all about the shadows. And there are a lot of pictures depicting during the summertime, the sunrise and sunset would be here in the circle. During the solstice, it would be here. And whatever equinox, it would be here. So no, it's just called Woodhenge by archaeologists and scholars and everyone alike. And that's what I know about it.
Okay. Just curious.
Yeah.
Because that kind of plays into a little bit of what I researched too. This was more of a modern celebration than I researched, because there is Stonehenge, but in that area of England, there's henges all over the place and of different sizes. But the henge itself is actually the way that they dig a trench around the circle, except for the 4 points that align with the solstices and the equinox. And so you can enter in 4 different ways into the henge, but you can't enter in over the mound and through the pit that they make. Some of these henges were, like Stonehenge, the actual henge portion before the stones were put in, the mounds and the pits are very small. But if you go into a town like Ovesbury in England, the town is centered in the middle of a very large henge that has a very deep pit that's probably 15 feet deep, and then the mound beyond it goes 15 feet above that, and then it's in a giant circle, and the actual road that you drive in on is the actual entrance, or that is actually aligned with the solstices and the equinox. And then they used the stones that were a part of this large henge to actually build some of their buildings and houses and stuff. But I didn't go real into a deep rabbit hole about it, but there are druids and pagans that go to Stonehenge every year for the winter solstice, and it's a celebration that it's anywhere from 1,000 to 3,000 people that go there to watch the winter sunrise as it comes up over the henge, and kind of how the stones are situated to have the specific happening only happen during the winter solstice. Same with the summer solstice as well. But yeah, there's a big celebration. Well, I wouldn't call it big, but a celebration in Europe now where they go and celebrate this stuff. I just thought that was very interesting that those type of celebrations are all over the place.
Yeah. Well, in the henges, these structures appear. So the henges, the earthworks, the pyramids. It's really mind-boggling to me that there are all of these repeating things across cultures, across time. It's a lot to think about. I have a couple of theories about it. Like, was there one proto-religion hundreds of thousands of years ago where a lot of these key concepts were inherited amongst human tribes as they split off and lived in different places? But even then, like, if you're talking about something like that thousands of years ago, how did they retain enough similarities to still...
And how was it that sophisticated as the first one? Because they all have, like, the part that
That's
actually
true.
is shared is the sophisticated part.
Mm-hmm.
The more mathematical leaning, science-based things are what is actually shared. The only thing that's sort of more unique is the spiritual side, or the like the bird people, like
the deities.
Yeah, the deities, like the specifics.
It seems to me that when you're living on the land like that, at the mercy of the elements, and how successfully you can hunt or find food, or even if animals to hunt are scarce because food is scarce for them, that of course you're going to really pay attention to the solar cycle, because that is going to play a huge role in weather and you being able to prepare for the winter,
preparation,
or have an extreme appreciation for when those things are going well. And then inevitably, if whatever is blessing me with these things, friggin' thank you,
or aliens.
Or aliens.
Can I throw a thought out there?
Yeah.
that I just had?
Yeah.
The kind of like a little epiphany here. Like, all those people back then were very connected to the earth. They didn't have like what we have today, concrete things that divide us a little bit from the earth. Now, like, concrete comes from the earth, but we don't have that same connection, that same feeling, that same grounding, if you will, to the earth like they did back then.
There's orders of removal. So, like, concrete, like you said, is a synthetic. Like, we put several things together and recombine them to make this.
So there's a kind of a disconnection. So the understanding and this is total like thought process, like not necessarily true, but just their understanding or their connection to the earth was just way different than ours.
Again, I'm thinking that it's owed more than anything to the fact that they would die if they didn't have that connection. That their very lives depended on them paying attention and understanding and being able to go with the flow and move with the animals, move with the sun. And it, as archaeologists understand it, I mean, it was thousands of years in the making of them tracking and watching and paying attention to the lunar cycle and the solar cycles too. I mean, they had lots and lots of time to think about it, and probably people dedicated to tracking it and recording it, however that would be, oral history or, tally marks on the cave wall. I don't know. That's where I am. Nobody's talking.
And
You're
you're
letting me
tracking
ramble.
and you're tracking the fact that those days are now turning around and it's coming back,
Yes.
because that's
Right.
important.
Yes.
Like now we can track that it's going to get better from here.
There's the light at the end of this tunnel, literally.
Just more kind of the grounding element. There was maybe some way they thought or learning they gained being so connected to the earth, whereas us as modern day humans were not as connected to that. Abby's point too adds right to that. They live or died based on this because they had to get food. We don't have that same stress
Yeah.
that they had. We can go to a grocery store and buy our food. They had to go out and hunt for it or grow it. They had to plan ahead in the different winter months to store food so they could survive all winter long. We don't have that problem. We don't have those issues. We can go down the street and buy our food. We can go to a restaurant and get food. We have food plentifully available to us, so we don't have that same that same thought process, that same discovery, that same
appreciation.
That's a good word for it.
I 100% agree with you. Yeah. You're right. You're totally right.
So, JT, since you kind of started talking about the henges, did you want to dive into your?
Yeah, that was one area that I looked at, was the winter solstice at Stonehenge. There's a lot of modern people that have gone back, and this kind of brings into the modern pagan and Wiccan solstice beliefs. These are going to sound very familiar. Pagan and Wiccan is Yule celebrations. Yule celebrations are also Scandinavian and Germanic. I couldn't find necessarily a connection between them other than just being regional. So modern Yule celebrations, there's the Yule log, and I looked into Yule logs. Yule logs were burned all night long. Sometimes they were burned for multiple days to beat the darkness because it was so dark. And so on the longest night of the year, they would burn these big cedar or oak or birch logs. I also had a little rabbit hole that I went down because I remember as a kid, my parents buying a Duraflame log and burning that on Christmas. And Duraflame logs, you can buy them and they're 3 hour, hour and a half, 2.5 hours. They have a certain time associated with it. But no, that was just somebody was like, hey, I have all this sawdust from making pencils. What should we do with it? Oh, let's put it together with wax and burn it. It's just a way to recycle and make money out of their waste of their pencil factories. They're not necessarily connected. I was kind of hoping there was a connection, but there wasn't. There's always sunrise greetings on the solstice morning because it's the rebirth, the renew, the light is coming back, which Abby already kind of talked about with the solstice. That's kind of what the celebration is. And the summer solstice is a celebration of the longest light. And then we know that it goes, there's a whole cycle with that. There are celebrations with evergreens and hollies. I had this really cool video of somebody that talked about what kind of Christians stole from Yule celebrations. Mistletoe was used in death rituals, sacrifices even.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, I couldn't find any more information other than Like mistletoe was not used to kiss under. No, it was used more of a in a ritual of death, like
And
the berries
berserkers.
being. What's
What'd
that?
you say?
And berserkers.
Berserkers.
They would use it on their bodies. They would paint themselves white. That was with mistletoe, I
Right.
believe.
Yeah, they would use the berries of the mistletoe.
Well, it's more fitting. Mistletoe is a parasite, if I understand it right. It actually
Yes.
will root into the host tree and slowly kill it. So
Yes.
that makes more sense.
There's always been big feasts and offerings, big meals with seasonal foods, roast boar, which is more of a Scandinavian tradition, nuts, apples, spice cakes, mulled wine or cider. In Scandinavia, it's called glögg. Fruit cakes, gingerbread. Then there's 12 days of Yule, which goes from the solstice to New Year's, or 12th night, which is actually January 6th. And each night has a small ritual, candle lighting, or storytelling solved with it. So you can see where all these similarities are coming from with the modern day Christian celebration of Christmas.
Mm-hmm.
There was another video that I watched that was hilarious, and it shows a Yule celebration, and then somebody shows up, Christ shows up and was like, "Oh, hey, yeah, we're gonna take that. These celebrations are done. You guys can go home." And there was somebody dressed up like a Christmas tree, and he's like, "No, we're gonna keep you. You're here. You get to be in the tree. You get to stay," and had all these different aspects of the Yule celebrations that are now celebrated as Christmas traditions, but they were originally different celebrations throughout the world with different solstice celebrations. Same with the colors, like red, green, gold, white. There was one specific tradition that is celebrated quite a bit. It's called Lucia Day in Sweden, and it's the celebration of Santa Lucia, which before it was really adopted, it was celebrated on December 13th based on the Julian calendar before the Gregorian reform. And so the Swedes celebrate Lucia Day, and then the Saint Lucia that was from Italy kind of morphed into when the Catholics came in, and they kind of took that celebration and turned it more into a Saint Lucia celebration. But before that, they would have people that would burn candles all night long to stave off the darkness of the longest day of the year. Saint Lucia, she has a crown of candles, and she brings food to people so they could live out the night.
We might have talked a little bit about this. This all sounds familiar from our last Christmas episode.
Yeah, I did talk about it a little bit. But it's all these things they all have roots in the Yule or the solstice celebrations that we now celebrate today. They're all just basically copies.
Mm.
You know, Christmas is just a copy of a Yule celebration. That's essentially what it is. And the modern Christians or the Catholics brought in Christmas as a way to more celebrate Christ. But a lot of the things that we do and celebrate with modern Christmas, even though we've now have it even more modernized and some of our own traditions, like the Christmas tree is not a Christian tradition. A lot of the different things that happen, like even Santa Claus isn't necessarily a Christmas thing. In the Scandinavian area, they called him the Jultomte, and he was more of a gnome.
Mm-hmm.
And that's kind of where Santa Claus comes from. So it's not even a Christian thing, or it's a Yule thing. The other thing that I looked into was celebrations in Iran. It's called Yalda, and it is a pure solstice celebration. And basically, everyone stays awake all night long. And then grandma slices open a watermelon that has somehow stayed sweet all autumn long, and they pile pomegranates, nuts, and dried figs. But they use watermelon and pomegranates because it's red, and it's supposed to that redness is supposed to keep evil away. And so that's why they stay up all night. They eat pomegranates and watermelon and to keep evil away, and then they just kind of eat nuts and things, and then they just tell stories, and they read
I seem to recall
selections.
something about pomegranates in, was it the vampire episode? Didn't you tell us something about the Egyptian person who was just bloodthirsty and they would use pomegranates to get her to chill out, or beer?
Oh,
Something red beer.
Red beer.
And then pomegranate somehow became a
They
part
would
of
diet from pomegranates or something like that.
Okay, sorry. Didn't mean to interrupt you, but you said pomegranates and boom.
I said pomegranates. Well, this is more kind of the Persian side of things.
Okay.
So there was a Persian poet called Hafez, Hafez, Hafez. And so they sit around and they read their favorite Persian poetry from the Hafez. That's kind of what I looked up.
neat.
It is kind of funny that around the world they use pomegranates for like death or warding off evil spirits, or
Yeah.
because Hades did it too, right?
The myth of Persephone was centered around pomegranate, and that also is centered around the changing of the season. That's the Greek myth. But you said it, so I thought I'd add
That's
that.
fine. Anyway, that's really kind of where I ended my research, was Yalda. I'm sure there's more into Yalda that I could have delved deeper into, but it just thought it was interesting because there's a lot of things that are similar or that get put together. Like in Iran, you're probably going to be drinking cardamom tea. And in Scandinavia, cardamom is widely used in all of their sweets and treats and things like that, and their baked goods. There's just a lot of similarities with everything, like that's why I found it was interesting that we have a wood henge here in the North America, and then there was wood henges and henges all over in the UK as well.
I was interested in the Turkish solstice celebrations and trying to dig into that. In some of that, there is some overlap with the Persian, but there's also overlap, I think, with some of the Asian. So I'm wondering, Cameron, did you want to get into yours now, or do you want to wait and see what stuff kind of overlaps with what I have to talk about?
I can get into mine.
Okay.
Yeah, so I did, and Mandy, please correct this. Dongzi.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't speak Chinese anymore, French. I don't know what that is.
Neither do I. Okay, so that's the Winter Solstice Festival. That's celebrated largely in China, but it's Eastern Asian. So this is Dongzhi, which means extreme winter or the winter's arrival. It's a tradition in the Asian winter solstice, in which the shortest day and the longest night of the year occurs. And it's important for them because, obviously, for every culture, it's when things are more scarce. This one was for the representation of yin and yang. Yin representing the darkness, cold, stillness, inward motion, and rest. And then yang slowly taking over, which is light, warmth, activity, growth, and life. So this is when yin reaches its maximum, and then yang slowly returns.
That mention of the stillness reminds me of what Abby had to say about how the celebration was really about finding the stillness in yourself. If I am interpreting that correctly, Abby.
This one's not really about deities. It's just about natural forces in the world. So it reminds people the cycles are natural, darkness is not permanent, and rest is necessary before growth, is what they usually use this for.
Nice.
In ancient Chinese cosmology, winter is not just a season. As the year moved forward towards the solstice, yin energy grew heavier in the world, and rivers slowed, animals withdrew, plants slept, and nights stretched longer and longer. On the night of Dongzhi, yin would grow no further, so this would be the longest night, and things would sort of come back to normalcy. It's perfectly balanced, not advancing nor retreating. So they do use cosmic wheel. This is one of 24 solar terms. There's the 12 major, and then they split them up into 24. Yeah, so they literally used a wheel, and it was like 15 degrees of solar movement. So they used these for agricultural, medicine, and ritual timing, and for governance, because it was easier to control people and their mood cycles with the way that their hardships were going.
You don't want to impose a new bill when they're already pissed off about not having food.
That tracks.
But what's funny is I did see that they have their own kind of like Stonehenge, but they used like full buildings. So they didn't have like a Stonehenge, but they had like buildings set up with different slits to track the solstices. And like if the sun came up perfectly in this window, then we knew that this is the peak of this time of year. So they did have that too. It wasn't quite as mythic as other cultures, it seems. It was more like they literally were just tracking where the sun was because they knew that it was the cycles would continue. Some of the traditions that they would have is you would eat warm food to support physical warmth and internal balance. You spend time with family, reinforcing harmony and continuity. Resting more than usual aligns the body with the seasonal rhythms, and honoring ancestors, maintaining respect for lineage and survival. Survival played a big part in this time of year. Taboos would be you don't want to have conflicts or use harsh speech this time of year. So goodwill towards men. It's kind of funny they did that too. Don't overwork. Don't physically exert yourself. Avoid unnecessary exposure to cold. So this was a time of rest, being kind to one another, and staying warm.
I mean, it all makes sense. Like it shouldn't be a surprise that a lot of the themes are the same because everybody's going through the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
Like they're all experiencing the same change of nature and the same struggle. But it is interesting to me that there's less spiritualism with that.
Yeah.
Than it was truly just about marking the calendar.
Well, so they had like internal energies that they would sort of mimic the external world. So that's why you were trying to be kind to one another, avoiding harsh speech or overworking. And that's why you would eat warm food. It's to sort of build that energy within yourself. That's what it meant by internal balance there.
I see. So it almost strikes me as like a kind of Confucianism. Interesting.
So you would be eating various seasonal foods, tangyan, which is a glutinous rice ball. There would be dumplings, and this would be a time of family gatherings and eating together to mirror cosmic harmony. Ancestral offerings would also be food on altars, and you would help the family survive previous winters. Anyone that helped you, you would then help them.
That ties in with some of what I had researched as well, is this ancestor. The ancestor worship and appealing to the ancestors was an important part of the season.
If we're talking about these, especially the ancient indigenous cultures where they're living off the land, right? And generally speaking, with regard to winter solstice, it is a more quote unquote pagan celebration in the first place. Then of course, right? And with regard to that sitting, the stillness, like in finding the stillness in yourself, it also comes back to that Latin origin of the word, sun sits still or sun stands still. It's the day that the sun stops and changes direction. Yeah, very good.
It's pretty cool. I wanted to learn about Turkish solstice. So what I had learned from my husband about Turkey, and this is just one Turkish person talking about their life experience, right? He's not a scholar, but that in Turkey, the primary peoples had been nomadic and that they lived a very pagan existence, and they had a pagan belief system that was earth-based, and it was about the spirits of the land. And according to him, from what he had learned about some Native American indigenous cultures, it was very similar. There were a lot of similar beliefs and reverence for a lot of the same animals even. And then Islam came in and sort of took over, and people were forced to become Muslim. And so they did, because they would rather do that than die. And the Muslim religion Islam became the primary religion because of the way that the conversions happened. Again, according to one Turkish person who was not a scholar, Turkish people are really pragmatic. Okay, well, if I got to become Muslim, great, I'll become Muslim. But they still held on to some of their internal, some of that lasted, some of that continued and persisted. And it's very reminiscent of when Christianity came to the north and to the Scandinavians. Like, you had to convert by the sword. You converted or you died, but a lot of people still kind of held on to some of their beliefs and just sort of hid them away. Well, he tells me that all of those things, and I sort of put that aside, and that when we go to Turkey and we visit during the winter, there's Christmas trees everywhere, or at least they look like Christmas trees to me. And according to my husband, it's a fad. It's this wave of being that Turkish people have kind of accepted, except they don't celebrate Christmas, obviously, because they're Muslim. It's a way of celebrating the new year. So people will take in Christmas trees because they're festive and they're fun, and they've adopted the Christmas tree into part of the culture and part of the celebration of the new year. Great, right? Well, that's the background. As I'm reading about this, I had to confront my husband because everything he told me was, well, not everything, but a lot of what he told me wasn't true, friends. So as it turns out, there is the old pagan celebration of the Turkic peoples, which is not just people in Turkey, but there's a lot of tribes of Turks in various countries. And this celebration is called Nardugan, and it means the birth of the sun or sun birth. And it has its roots in a religious system, which is not necessarily a religion, but a belief system, I should say, a cosmology called Tengrism. And Tengrism is a pagan, some people say monotheistic, but to me it really looks polytheistic, animistic tradition that is very familiar. I've heard of Tengrism before. And where I heard about it before was when I was learning about shamanism from a UK shaman by the name of Nicholas Breeze-Wood. He talks about the Tangers and he talks about Tengrism, but I never really paid much attention to it because it just was not something I was the most interested in. It was just something that I heard about as a form of spirituality and a deity. Well, it begins to make sense. As a Turk, Talat says, my husband, that one of their primary ancestors, one of them is Genghis Khan. And he was a Mongol who went around and he conquered a bunch of lands, and he was a really big deal, right? And I'm obviously simplifying, and it's not the whole story, but Genghis Khan went around, he conquered a bunch of lands, and he was a very successful human being, and he had thousands of children, so the saying goes. And he was the father of a lot of different kinds of mingling of these different Asian cultures and these Eastern cultures. And my husband believes that Genghis Khan is one of the ancestors of the Turkish people, which is not 100% true, from probably a scholar's perspective, but in a way, if you look at the cultural growth and the mingling of cultures, maybe that is true. Genghis Khan did have a lot to do with it. So I talk about that because I did hear about the Tanger as a spirit, sort of in passing, as I was studying that Mongolian shamanism class, as I was in that class. My impression that I got about Tanger was that Tanger was some kind of a sky god, maybe, but he was an all-powerful being that sort of held everything else under its umbrella. It was too high and too powerful and too great to really understand, maybe. And so I got the sense that because it was kind of held in that esteem, people didn't even bother. They just left it. We understand that the Tanger exists. The Tanger is all powerful. But there's not a lot of time spent trying to understand the unknowable. It's just understood that it is unknowable. And that has a lot of similarities to some other beliefs that I've learned about. So Tangerism is this idea. Tanger is this all-powerful being in the sky upon which everything else sort of plays out, and is the father of all other beings. And so there's a lot of that's still practiced in Mongolia now, and it is the basis upon which this Nardogan ceremony is built on in Turkey. So the idea is that in Turkey, and it depends on who's talking and what story you're hearing, Tengger is sometimes interchangeable with this character called Ulgan. And Ulgan is the sun. He is like a god, the sun god, and he's the god of life and prosperity and warmth, and he is the god of bounty. And then you have Erlik, who is his brother, or sometimes his child, but the child of Tengger, who is the god of death and the underworld, and in Turkic mythology might also be called Tamag. And the two of them are in this constant struggle against each other. It sounds very much like yin and yang, this competition. Erlik wants to be equal to his brother. He wants to have a land of his own. He wants to be important like Ulgan. But when he does that and he's overpowering Ulgan, there's a lot of suffering and disease on the world and in humanity. So the central story around Nardogan is that day and night are in an eternal battle with each other. And on the winter solstice, which is the longest night, we've all talked about that, darkness seems to win. And yet the next day, the sun, Nar, is born anew. And he begins his return to power, and he brings longer days ever after that. So Nardogan is a festival which marks the triumph of the sun over the darkness. And that's why it means sun born. The sun is born anew the next day. And so there are a few pieces of symbolism that are important. In Turkey, in this Tengger religion, there is an upper world where the sky beings live, with the birds and, all of the beings that live in the heavens. And then there's a middle world where human beings and animals and all of the other living creatures live. And then there's an underworld where Erlik resides, and death and other beings live, and spirits of different kinds live. The tree of life, which may sound familiar, is this pine or fir tree, which is considered sacred in this old Tengger religion. And it symbolizes this connection between all three of the realms together, which very much is reminiscent of the Axis Mundi, and reminds me of Yggdrasil, and reminds me of this binding of the realms. So in order to bring in the blessings of Tengger, the blessings of Ulgan, the Turkish people would, very long time ago, bring one of these trees into their homes in order to bring the blessing into their home. Red was very important because it symbolized the returning of the sunrise and the power of the sun. And so they would decorate the tree with red ribbons in order to help increase the blessings and embody that spirit of the sun coming back. And they also used it, they were prayer ties. They would whisper a prayer as they were tying it onto the tree. So each tie was its own separate prayer or wish. So there's a figure from this old paganistic belief called Ayazata, excuse me, I pronounced that wrong, who we might say is like Father Christmas or Santa Claus, but actually he was like Father Winter. So he was this god or being of winter, who Father Snow or Father Frost, who embodied the spirit of winter. So he was this winter spirit. And over time, he sort of has transformed, and now so he is kind of Noel Baba, or Baba Noel, who is, Christmas father. So when this Christmas tree is coming back, it actually, although in Talat's mind, it's because, we're bringing in and we're accepting kind of this Christmas tradition because we really like the tree. The reason they really like the tree is because it harkens back to this old pagan tradition. And when I asked Talat about it, he goes, well, I mean, yeah, it is an old tradition, and it's just part of, so like there's a lot of reasons why this Christmas tree has come back into the celebration of the new year. And the last thing I wanted to talk about, the pomegranate is an important part of celebration. The pomegranate itself is this fruit, which is like a womb, which has lots of seeds and inside of it. We all know what a pomegranate is, so I don't know why I'm wasting time explaining it. But one of the important traditions on the new year, and I've actually seen my in-laws do it and I didn't understand what they were doing. They will take a pomegranate and they'll smash it on the ground. And that's an important part of the tradition. And the more seeds that spread and smash all over the place, the more bountiful the year will be and the better your harvest will be. And it's a kind of blessing on the home. And my in-laws are very clean, so they actually will put it inside of like a plastic bag and like smash it on the ground so it doesn't stain everywhere. But that is an old tradition that is still, I have seen practiced by my family. And so the important part of all of this and this activity is the same as it is what I have heard from each of you. It's about family being together and celebrating this turning point of the year. Feasting is important, and that often will feature foods like pomegranates and nuts, sometimes different kinds of melons. And they mention Yalda because there has been some sharing of beliefs and traditions with the Persian Iranian people. Lots of storytelling and poetry, wishing rituals, and welcoming the dawn. So people who can would stay up to greet the new day and celebrate the sun's new strength.
I think too that what we're talking about now is mainly or is only northern hemisphere solstice celebrations. In the southern hemisphere, they're currently celebrating midsummer because it's the middle of their summer. And their winter solstice, there's quite a few different celebrations, like in Peru, but this would be in June that they would do these during their winter solstice. Very similar, very renewing feasts, very similar celebrations. But one that I found very interesting was in Peru, the Inca, they celebrate what's called Inti Raymi. And Inti was the god of the sun, or the sun god. That's what they call them. And that's a tradition that is done today down in Peru. It's just a massive reenactment of the Inca Sun Festival in Cusco. Thousands dressed in traditional costumes perform rituals, offer sacrifices, now it's symbolically, and welcome the return of the sun god. And it's usually a huge public event with music, dancing, and feasting. The other one that is interesting is what they do in New Zealand. It's called Matariki. I don't know if I'm saying that right. But it marks the rising of the Pleiades star cluster that's around the solstice.
That's cool.
And it's celebrated kind of as a new year with fireworks, feasting, kite flying, storytelling, and remembering the dead. And it's now a national public holiday in New Zealand since 2022. So I wanted to just mention a few of the winter solstice celebrations that happen in the southern hemisphere 6 months from now.
That's cool.
I think for me, what I like about this, and there's still, I feel like, so much to learn. But what I like about this is that this is shared human heritage. It doesn't matter which culture we look at. Everybody had something. And the stories that they told and the deities that they prayed to or asked for blessings from may have been different, but the intention and the need and the underlying belief is all the same. It doesn't matter which gods they were, what specifically the practices were. What was happening was at its core the same. And I really have enjoyed hearing about these different cultures and these different ways of practicing solstice.
All right.
Yeah.
I think it's so, like, I want to point out the weird ones. Pomegranate, the tree, the tree of life, the tree of knowledge, the Yule tree.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of strange that that's shared between these different cultures. The buildings, though, like Stonehenge and that stuff, that tracks that it would be kind of a natural progression, because that's just noticing a pattern up in the sky and tracking that. Okay, aliens removed. That makes sense. Why the pomegranate? That's a weird one. That's
maybe because it's seasonal in that area. I don't know. That's a really good question.
Yeah,
It's
somebody
seasonal
look
and
it
it
up.
serves the right symbol.
Yeah, is pomegranate an autumnal seasonal harvest fruit? Because that would make a lot of appropriate sense. Plus the red, the dyeing, the colors used to create art.
Late September through December in the Northern Hemisphere.
Booyah!
Okay.
That's why. Good question, Cameron.
So I guess that's
The
also
things are
another one.
connecting.
Yeah.
I mean, you could say the same about the trees and the fir trees. It's a symbol of enduring strength.
Well, yeah, but the fir trees are,
And
when
they're
they
what are
grow,
available.
they just exist year round. They don't really die.
Right. But I think for me, what that points to is people recognizing the inherent power and the meaning that you don't, just because, yes, that is the ripe time, the harvest time for this particular fruit, doesn't negate whatever power people may have recognized in it. But it does mean that multiple people saw it as something that had some spiritual power. I don't know. I feel like for some of these, if we want to hear the real stories, I wanted to know the spirit stories. I wanted to know. But I think for some of these, we just have to find the people who know and have them tell us. You're not going to find it on the internet.
You got a lot from Talat. That was kind of cool.
Yeah, and that's ultimately what Oren on Native Languages was saying. He was saying, if you want to know, go talk to them.
Mm-hmm.
Go straight to the source. They're happy to share, but people who don't know what they're talking about have no business sharing it. And so I know I'll mess it up if I try to share it. So yeah, I'm good.
Yeah.
Well, and there is a real deep spirituality when you
There
talk about
is.
the animism and that oneness with the land. I mean, because again, there's that animistic part of it, that the land has spirits that they're all connecting with at this time of year. So that's significant. It is still highly spiritual, even in the stillness.
Yeah. Well, even the stillness itself is spiritual to me.
Yeah. Well, I guess, yeah. Well, and I guess I assume that that's why, the stillness is grounding you and helping you.
Well, isn't that what Cameron said?
Better? I don't
It's,
know.
yeah.
In the stillness, we find the rest we need in order to grow.
I'm
I think it's
sorry.
great. We're all coming around to the same thing.
Yeah. I think we all agree, guys. It's beautiful. It's beautiful.
Here's what I'd like. Each one of you, what would be a solstice blessing that you would give to our listeners?
Well, as a matter of fact, after this episode, we're going to do a very solstice appropriate recording regarding this whole year's worth of episodes that we've done and what will be coming in the future. And so it's the recognizing what has passed and what will come. And with that, I definitely want to acknowledge the listeners who are growing us. And thank you very much. And I do wish you well. And I'm going to emphasize that real hard in this next episode, is like vibes to you guys, vibes. And I hope that we can keep improving for you. That's my wish for you, is that, we can keep creating something that you want to hear and that gives you joy in your pastime. Like whatever situation that you're listening to us, I hope that we can keep fostering something enjoyable for you.
Peace and prosperity for all.
Get some good food, hang out with family, and spread merriment.
I'm going to consciously center and connect. I would invite all of us in this moment to take a deep breath. Bring in peace and love and healing. Bring in prosperity, and exhale any of those things that don't serve you anymore. For this solstice, I wish for all of you health. I wish for all of you stability. I wish for all of you food security and happiness. I wish you joy. And so We thank you so much. This has been another episode of
The Wandering
Wandering
Crow.
Crow.